Gamers of Reddit, what are the strangest things you've heard over an open mic? Was getting full on cussed out by a kid easily around 5 or 6. He was literally saying fuck you, you faking cunt. I hope Satan rapes your ass and his spludge gets in your sheety eyes, you stupid little ass faker. So we started firing back at him with everything we had. We kind of made him cry. Then his mom gets on the mic and starts yelling at us. She's telling us how we are setting a bad example for her child and we shouldn't be using that kind of language around someone his age. So we went off on her too. Explained that her kid was being a sailor-mouthed little sheet. She started yelling at us saying that her kid can do whatever he wants. So we said that if he's going to talk sheet like an adult, then he's going to have sheet talked back to him like he's an adult. She gets even more pissed. This is the best faking part. I'm still laughing about this. The faking grandmother gets on the mic and starts spouting off to us. She's saying that her daughter is a fantastic mother and we need to leave them alone or she's going to call the police. We managed to piss a kid off so bad that we got yelled at by 3 generations of that family in the span of a few minutes. God, it was fantastic. For those of you that are curious, we were playing Advanced Warfare. TLDR pissed a kid off so bad that we got yelled at by 3 generations of his family. All credit goes to /u/SC2 bench, but I thought this was a really good story given the question. I have legitimately heard someone on my team break up with a girl during a game of Dota on voice. He was using open mic, and she was like, get off that stupid game, take me out to dinner in this horribly entitled voice. After around 10 minutes of him being calm and saying things like, it's okay baby, just let me finish this game, I will get punished if I leave, and her just not understanding that she issued an ultimatum, if you don't turn that game off right now and take me to dinner, I'm leaving. And he just typed in chat, pause please, need to break up with my girlfriend, and everyone lolled and paused and the dude just went faking ballistic. Like, this is my apartment, you stay here on my dime, I buy you all your food, I give you money to geo shopping. You don't get to issue ultimatums to me when you don't have sheet without me. Get the fuck out of my apartment, this relationship is over. Then it was lots of her crying and yelling and bringing up all this shit he did wrong in the past, as if that was going to help, and eventually he just said sorry, relationship is over. I don't care. Bring a truck and one of those douchebag bar guys you love to fuck so much to get your stuff tomorrow. See if any of them are willing to clothe, feed, house and fuck you. And everyone on voice chat just went oh, and we were typing everything that was happening to the enemy team. He eventually got her out of the apartment, and boy did it sound like the guy had a world of pressure off his shoulders. After the game I friended him. We still talk on Steam sometimes. He really ended the relationship and ended up just putting all her shit in a storage locker when she didn't come get it for a week. He has a new girl now who apparently isn't as awful. I tend to stay pretty quiet when I'm playing online games, but there was a memorable moment that occurred about a year ago while I was playing Team Fortress 2. The honest truth of the matter is that I'm absolutely terrible at most first-person shooters. If I'm lucky, I'll manage to score a single kill, maybe 2, before being offed by an opponent that I didn't notice. This fact was apparently unforgivable, and a young man who was offended by my skills, or lack thereof, wasted no time or breath in informing me of my failures. Oh my god, he shouted, you faking suck. Seriously, you faking suck. I can't faking believe how much you faking suck. At first, I ignored the tirade. As time went on, though, I realized that the fellow didn't appear able to say anything beyond oh my god, I seriously can't believe how much you faking suck. His entire vocabulary could seemingly be derived from those 12 words. I took it as a challenge. After fumbling a bit to figure out which key activated my microphone, I responded back with a tirade of my own, while imitating Kermit the Frog's voice. Hey, man, I finally replied, I heard you got kicked out of military school for being too boring. Don't ask me what I meant by that. It was a nonsensical insult that was intended to provoke the fellow. Fuck you, my conversational opponent shouted. It seemed like my verbal jab had done the trick, as there was suddenly a tone of real rage in his voice. Fuck you, you faking fuck. Faking fuck. You faking suck. Got I did my best to suppress a laugh, then switched to imitating Cookie Monster. Me no think you be having good grasp of English. Me think you only know words like fuck and suck. Me think you should learn words like cookie. Fuck you. You faking. You are seriously the biggest faking loser. Whoa. I replied, still as Cookie Monster. You use some new words. Now say cookie. The young man's frustration was audibly increasing as he shouted fuck you back at me, and was that a tinge of fear that I detected. Cookie? I replied. Faking stop. You're faking creepy, and you faking suck. There was definitely some sort of mounting discomfort in the guy's voice. Had I discovered, I wondered, the one individual on the planet with a phobia about Muppets? Cookie. Stop. Fuck. Stop faking around. I went silent for about 5 seconds. Then, starting in a low ominous growl, and moving up into a tone of manic insanity, I went for the kill. Cookie? As much as I'd love to say that the young man burst into tears, disconnected, and left the world of online gaming forever, the truth of the matter is more mundane, though not by much. Midway through my long-winded bellow, the guy flipped out and started screaming in near gibberish. The occasional fuck and so on was still audible, but it seemed like he had been reduced to offering wordless exclamations while his voice cracked. This went on for the rest of the match. The guy didn't stop until the very end, when he managed to squeak out a final fuck you. You suck. Before disconnecting. My team lost the match, but I like to think that I won the war. TLDR, I drove a guy bananas by talking about cookies. Raided with a gal during Blackwing Lair who had 2 kids around the same age. It'd be around 11 PM and we'd hear these elementary school age kids say stuff like "Mommy, we are hungry," and she'd respond with "Not now, mom is raiding." We booted her after a month though, because she was an awful healer. Edit. Also there was the off-tank during Black Temple that lived with his mother for cultural reasons. Every now and then, we'd hear his mom start shouting at him in some North African language and he'd start shouting right back. Dude was a complete fuckwit and would not use push to talk. Real arrogant motherfucker, but a great tank that we had trouble replacing. Edit 2. And there was the terrible paladin who flat out refused to listen to any suggestions I made to him. So he ultimately got the boot once we were able to replace him. After he was kicked, he messaged the GM accusing him of discrimination and threatening to sue. Apparently the shitty paladin was in a wheelchair which absolutely no one was aware of, so what? Keep the story coming guys. I love reading all these. So faking fantastic to hear about all the crazes from other people who've raided a fair bit. For people wondering, I played on Whisperwind mostly. Backstory, there was this player, Josh Warrior, who had joined our guild. He was, as one can easily deduce, a warrior. He was as terrible can be. Didn't know what a rotation was. Couldn't gear properly. He was only like 11, so we let it slide, but his general inability to learn, or even try to learn, made his life as a guildmate short. The story, it was near the end of BC, and my druid tank wasn't very geared, relative to endgame, so I would use him to help out new, fresh guilds get through Kara, as I could sleep through any encounter and still maintain aggro, and not really worry. I decide to help out this one guild, and who shows up? Josh Warrior. Alden continued on. My bear was indestructible. Vent was a fun conversation. Everyone was chill and thankful of my help. I don't really remember where we were in the raid, when suddenly Josh Warrior flatly proclaims my dad just had a heart attack. I think he's dead. Progress comes to a stop. Holy shit. Did he need to go help him? Did he want to leave? We'd get a replacement. No, the ambulance is here, and my dog is really big. If I go out of my room, he'll definitely get out and attack the paramedics. The most awkward silence ever ensued, and we continued on through a few trash packs. Finally, their guild leader stops the raid and starts asking Josh how he's doing. Fine. I think he's dead. We can keep going though. I just want some loot. We finished the rest of the raid in near complete silence except for me coordinating the encounters. I've never felt so awkward over Vent. Nobody else uttered a word. Every person from the guild whispered apologies and gave resounding thanks. That was, by far, the most memorable and faked up raid ever. This story isn't so much something accidentally heard through a mic, but the other players' reaction to it. We had this mage character in our guild on WoW. Our guild wasn't anything terribly special, just doing Molten Core, Elixir, and BWL before Burning Crusade came out. Back in the good old days, where you had class-specific chat channels to coordinate class-specific jobs 10% of the time, and rag on all the inferior classes 90% of the time. At the time of this story we were pretty new and just doing Elixir regularly, sometimes took 2 attempts, had about 30 people, and hadn't downed Ragnaros until a month later. Anyway, this guy had been in the guild since his 50s, and we were happy that he was finally able to start raiding. Pretty fun guy, really sarcastic, really good mage. Never gave his age, but from the way he wrote and carried on a conversation, he seemed like a college or graduate school kid in his mid-20s. Anyway, raids mean Ventrello, so he joined up in the channel, but he claimed he didn't have a mic and always responded in chat. To make a long story short, a few months after he started raiding, one evening 2 guys got kicked deep into the whelps and woke like 90% of them up. Rather than many whelps handle them, our guild leader just called for us to wipe. Suddenly this really high-pitched voice comes over vent and says, "Forget that, keep going. Nobody else touch the whelps. Everyone else on vent shut up. We'll handle this. Mages, grab the whelps and come to the center. Anyone with whelps come to the center. Group 3 healers, you're with us." Nobody knew who the hell it was, but we went with it. Lucky me, I had the talents for a 70% slowing blizzard, so I got to be the main kite. Humbling and terrifying experience of kitting 100 whelps, with some random girls keeping me alive by coordinating half a dozen frost novas. She had us run in circles along the bottom of the lair for 8 minutes, and she freaking pulled it off. It took a minute for us to realize exactly who this chick was. Wait a secretary, we don't have any girl mages, what the fuck, but everyone was too focused to comment on it. When the raid was finally over, everyone is laughing, the comments start coming out. "We thought you were a guy. Didn't know you were a girl," etc. I'm a guy. He says he's about 12 and more or less the size of a 9-year-old, says fun raid, and logs off pretty quickly after that. You can imagine the mini freakout that followed. The cognitive dissonance was fantastic. About a third of the people there refused to believe that person was so young and decided that him being a 24-year-old girl lying about her age and gender was far more believable than their friend being that young. This person was very sarcastic and prank prone, to be fair. Logic along the lines of a little kid can't fake being that old. They always referred to the guy as her after that. They just couldn't believe the one that saved the raid single-handed was still in middle school and whose voice hadn't dropped. The guild leader at least was pretty cool with it, even asked him to be help, lead some Elixir runs after that, and be mage lead a month later when our main one left. Kid flat out refused, said he couldn't take his own voice seriously and wouldn't expect any of the raid leaders to, much less the players. Can't blame him. There were certainly people that mocked him after that, though happy to say it was a small minority. He was a pretty cool kid. Can't pretend it didn't screw with my own perceptions, but figured I liked him and respected him before I knew his age, so nothing really changed between us. But it was just hilarious to hear 30 teenage/college/middle-aged guys and a few girls obsess over learning they just got shown up and rescued by a middle schooler hiding amongst them. At the very least, that was the first moment I really appreciated the internet as the great equalizer. Edit. This started getting more views than I expected, so I cleaned up the writing. Last week I was playing GTA Online, in a heist, with some kids. Youngest one was maybe 12 or 13 maximum. During a setup mission his mom entered the room and told him to get off the Xbox. All he does is play games, etc. He told her he couldn't because he was almost done with an online mission and he would quit after. We finish the mission and start to queue up the finale. Someone asks if he needs to log off. He says nah, I'll just tell her it's still the same mission. Mid-finale mission, static starts to come over the mic and it sounds like a scuffle. Then you hear him pleading, "No, please don't turn it off, you can't do this. There are other players, I can't quit. It will end their game too." In a no facts given dead serious angry mom voice, "I hear your dad is in jail because of you. We are going to lose our house because of you. Silence. Log off. A few minutes later he was back in party chat. Sorry guys, we're having family problems and my mom gets like that. She's a salty cunt. I had a guy I liked to play with who lived in Australia. We'll call him Jason, because that was his name. He and I played Halo 2 a bunch, and tried to team up for as much as we could. He was a really great guy, fun to play with. Only this is, Jason really enjoyed doing shrooms. He would be tripping balls while playing with me. If you know anything about Halo, it's a very colorful and a little eccentric of a game. One time we were playing through the campaign and he started screaming bloody murder during one of the cutscenes. After a while the mic went silent, and I figured he had just been freaked out from the game. Then he was gone for 5 minutes, 10, 30, an hour, and I began to wonder if something bad had happened to my friend. I didn't have a number to call or anything to check on him, so I just waited. 2 hours later he comes back, chill as can be, and goes, "Sup man, how ya doin'?" I'll let loose a little and tell him I've been all worried and ask what happened. He launches into a story about how his toilet came alive and tried to attack him, and he somehow got locked in the bathroom for a few hours. I never really mentioned it again, but it really was crazy to hear just over a mic. While playing Rust with 2 of my friends about a year and a half ago, one says he'll be back in a minute. After 15 minutes, he's still not back, and that's when I heard it. It was subtle at first, and happened right in the middle of my buddy's sentence, but I knew I heard something. Tuning out my buddy, I listened for the background noise, and heard another something. "Shh, you hear that?" Silence. And then, a very quiet, female, UHH, came over the mic. "Did you hear that?" I asked. "What was that?" I think someone is having sex." What followed was probably 20 minutes of such noises, growing in volume until both parties were finally satisfied. Then silence. Another few minutes, some rustling over the mic, and our friend greets us with, "Hey guys. So did you have fun? Could you hear all that?" And in the middle of our laughter, "Ooh yeah, we heard ya." TLDR, friend and I unintentionally shared in another friend's intimate moments over Skype. I was playing N64 battle tanks with my little brother circa 2001. We were playing arena deathmatch against the computers. I had just respawned in a tank and my little brother screams "Nuak" and dives into a bunker to wait it out. I had spawned fairly far from a bunker and was rocking one of them big sumbunches. Immediately I beeline it for the bunker screaming, and my little bro, who is about 8 years old, is crying with laughter as my giantess tank is bumbling around scampering for a bunker. My mom upstairs thinks something is wrong and is yelling downstairs, "What? Wha?" My little sister runs in from her bedroom, immediately sees what's happening, and is on the floor laughing with my bro. I make it to the bunker with like 1 split second left on the nuke countdown. I swear to God. True story. Also, this was before internet on consoles, so the open mic was just us sitting together on the couch. I think that counts. Also, I punched him good for that one. Little faker. A buddy of mine and I were playing survival mode COD MW3 one night. He was achievement hunting and asked if I could help. So we're a couple rounds in, waiting for the next round to start. We weren't talking at the moment, so I was just quietly sitting there waiting. He chimes in, "Friend, stop making that sound." Me, what sound? Friend, that one. What you just did. Me, I didn't do anything. So we start the round and forget about it. Couple rounds later, same thing. Friend, come on. That's creepy as fuck. Stop. Me, I'm not doing anything. What are you talking about? Friend, that screaming sound. Me, what? Friend, it sounds like a guy screaming bloody murder and it's definitely coming from your mic. At this point I freak out. I rip off my headset and listen, quickly glance around me. Nothing of the spooky variety. I put my headset back on, and I hear a slight clicking sound. Friend, there it is. Me, dude, I swear I'm not doing that. Friend, yay, that's creepy. So we continue on, obviously unnerved, and then I hear it. A man, sounded like he was screaming for his life, coming through my friend's mic. Me, I just heard it. Friend, faking scary right? We both agreed to get off as we were both too freaked out that something was trying to haunt our asses over in Sparks 360 party chat. I used to play Halo 3 with a whole family of people. The mom, dad, and 2 sons would all play. Occasionally one of the cousins would join in, and it was just a neat situation to see them all playing together. What makes this story worthy is that at one point one of the sons broke his wrist playing football, and he had to wear a cast on his left wrist. This meant that he couldn't reach the thumbstick and trigger on the controller at the same time. Whenever I played with them for the next few weeks it was only in big team battle, because those gam types had a warthog. His mom would drive the warthog up to the son and have him hop in the gunner seat. He'd still be on the mic, and it was just a never-ending onslaught of how terrible of a driver she is, all in a playful enough manner. After a few weeks of this though, he got absurdly good at being a warthog gunner and she became a passable driver. I always just thought it was funny when they'd roll the warthog he'd try his best to try to walk over there using his other hand, but for the most part she'd have to just drive the warthog over to wherever he ended up and have him hop in again. Searching by myself in big team battle in Halo 3 and got teamed up with a group of about 7 girls. Once the game started they all started talking about how they were sick of dating guys and how they loved screwing around with other girls. Got matched up with a 12-year-old kid in Fear 3 who had the thickest Scottish accent ever. He would say random stuff like I'm the personification of Jesus Christ in a mortal body. The best was when he started yelling mum, bring us some snackies. It was absolutely hilarious. One match in Battlefield 4 where someone had their Kinect on as a mic. I heard his wife have an entire phone conversation where she talked about her infant daughter's vaginal medical problems. Another open mic Kinect one in BF4 where this black couple had a huge argument. The 2 best lines were I ain't never said nothing about your mama being a drug addict, and you ain't never bought no key lime pie. I still feel awful about this. Was playing Halo with 4 or 5 friends in a public matchup, and since we were good and having fun some strange people partied up with us, and we went game to game as a group. Being adults we talked like adults. One of us started cursing out another in a way friends do when all of a sudden we heard shouting from the background in one of the random joiners account. He said he didn't use bad language, that somebody else had as his voice quickly went from calm to panicked. We heard the adult lady scream what have I told you? The kid screamed / cried no. Then a smack, and his oof as his mic cut off. The room was silent for a few moments then it said he disconnected. It wasn't the hour of a kid getting swatted. It was true fear. And it was absolute pain. And the smack sounded like something I've heard in bar brawls. To this day I think it was a little kid playing games when a parent walked by, heard cursing coming from the TV, blamed the kid, and picked him up by his hair and punched him in the gut. And my imagination can only go where it wants after that. Sent him a friend request so I could apologize next time he was on, but the account never came back. At least for several months, when my Xbox crashed, and I never got it fixed. These are all from Halo 3. Some guy told our entire team that he was going to have his dog lick peanut butter off his crotch. Almost immediately after, he starts moaning into the mic and there are audible dog slurping sounds in the background. Probably just some XBL attention ho playing a prank, but you never know. Some guy played Stu is I'm going to kick your ass line into his mic for entire pre-game lobby and the entire game. The irony of course being that once the game started, we, his teammates, were the only ones that could hear it. 2 kids with thick UK accents went Super Saiyan after I started, spawn team killing them in Griffball. One of them might have started crying. It was hard to tell. 2009 me thought it was hilarious. Now I'm thinking that might have been a dick move. One guy had a meltdown when Construct wasn't vetoed. During the countdown he was adamant that we had to veto the GAM type, who in their right mind would veto Construct British Rails, and when it got selected he went nuts. Literally screaming bloody murder into his mic. Sounded too twisted to be fake. Was playing with 2 online friends. Our 4th was a little kid. How little? He told us he was 5 years old. At the time I was shocked, but after becoming more familiar with the internet apparently this is not unheard of. I'm way too late to the game here. But one time I was playing BF4 on Xbox 360 and this dude got into an argument with his mum. It got really heated. I asked him afterwards if he was okay and he completely opened up to me. Told me his family was having major domestics. His sister had tried killing herself twice. He'd pulled a knife on his mum 6 months earlier and tried stabbing her. Shit was really dark with this poor kid. He was only 16 yo too. I ended up talking to him on private chat for about 2 hours. I asked him if he actually cared about his family. He broke down and said his mum was an angel and he didn't know why he was so horrible to her. I told him to write her a letter telling her exactly how he felt and that he needed to talk to a counselor at his school and tell them everything in detail. He messaged me back about 6 weeks later. He was in therapy twice a week and after writing his mum the letter, things were better than they'd been for years. It gave me warm fuzzies knowing that just a few words of advice at the right time can make such a difference to someone who just needed a little bit of guidance. Had a pretty big ring of people I used to play Left 4 Dead 2 with. One night, I was playing some really late night matches with my friend and his clan, who I had only played with a few times. One guy texted another person in the group, saying he was gonna be on to play in about 20 minutes. So we all ended up just hanging out in a party waiting for him. Now it's important to know that 2 of the people were a boyfriend/girlfriend pair that played split screen on the same TV. After 5 minutes or so we all get kinda bored and just go do whatever until he gets on. I started playing a game on my phone, but I kept my headset on. A few moments later I hear some rustling coming from the boyfriend's mic. Was just W/E and kept playing my game. I hear the unmistakable sound of skin slapping skin and very distinct female moaning. Sat there in silence for all 4 minutes they lasted. When they were finished, another guy, who was high af 24/7 was just like yo what the fuck yo. Neither of them said a word the rest of the night. Was playing Halo, I forgot which one. Was playing with a kid who liked to talk. Can't tell if he was for real, but he sounded like Borat. Said things like I got you in my sights you dirty fig Newton. Thank you demon, me, you're worth every token. This battle rifle was made for me, it is my friend. He referred flag as the banner and the enemy as the mean people and he always ended trying to talk to his opponents telling them to stop shooting him and try to sort things out. The thing was he was a good shot so whenever he killed on them, he never teabagged them, but rather tell them something on the grounds of this demise was your doing, or I hope we meet again on better terms. And whenever he died he said things like you got me this time you sneaky fig Newton, or like I have friends, and they will find you. He was actually a good player, although he camped he made rank matches into some kind of roleplay game of House or Family or something. I won matches with him. The thing was I never could tell if this was an act or not, because after friending him, he would be in character for months, even in normal conversation. Well, it's not as much as what I heard, it's about what I saw. World of Warcraft, Lich King battle. Leaders of the guild are a husband and wife team. Rather unlikable people. He's away on business and raiding from a laptop. We're on voice comms. Raid leader loses his temper and declares 10-minute break. As we stand there, a group video chat request pops up from Mrs. Guild Leader. So we click on it, expecting a strategy video. What we got instead has seared itself into my retinas forever. There she is. From the waist down. It looked like Thulhu with a bad toupee. There is a blow pop. It is jammed deep within that abomination's mouth. Whole guild goes dead silent. I'm the first to break with an open mic cry of, what the fuck? This triggers a landslide of horrified, incredulous, and hysterical reactions from the other 23 people in the raid. Mrs. Leader jumps, suddenly realizes what happened, flails at the camera, turns it off, and they both vanish. Next day, they disbanded the guild and transferred servers. To this day, I'm glad I yelled when I saw that. Had I stuck around long enough to see if it blew a bubble, I'm sure I'd be in a sanatorium right now. A few years ago back in college me and my friends would play LAN games, since our school's internet sucked so bad you couldn't even watch YouTube videos. Speed test even said our download speeds were 28k, not even dial up. So we would LAN up and play some Battlefield or Red Alert with each other. It would be about 6 of us all mixed up playing stupid games and talking shit to each other. My one friend has a pretty shitty family life. His parents are divorced, his mom is not exactly all there and has ailments, and his sister is full blown white trash. Somehow he was a pretty normal and cool guy. Well, one day, while playing Battlefield, he gets a call from his sister. He kept his mic on when he placed it on his desk to take the call. We can hear him arguing with his sister. I guess he was sending a decent amount of his college money that he got through loans and the money he got because his dad was in the Navy. Like a pretty significant portion of it because his mom and sister couldn't work. Well, the gist we got from the conversation was that he was tired of his mom and sister constantly needing more money, and he was even more pissed off because he found out his sister was using a lot of that money for cocaine, and she was also prostituting herself on the side for money. Oh, and his mom was working as a dominatrix. He finished his conversation by telling his sister that she will have a real hard time making money if he stops paying for her herpes pills. Also, one of my friends was on a wireless mic that used 2.5 GHz radio over Bluetooth before Bluetooth was super popular. Since so many things used 2.5 GHz like wireless phones, you could get some interference. My one friend called some of us into his room because he was hearing the entire conversation from the girl in the next room over using her wireless home phone. Now, a quick backstory. This girl recently said she was pregnant, like making a big deal about it, and how her and her boyfriend would make great parents. The boyfriend, not as excited. I think he was about to leave this girl. Well, on that call we were listening to, she was talking to one of her best friends. Her best friend was also pregnant. Well, apparently the best friend let her use her sonograms and even took a pregnancy test for her to show her boyfriend. The chick completely fabricated the story, most likely because she thought her boyfriend was going to break up with her and wanted to have an excuse for him to stay. My friends really didn't know the guy past the occasional beer pong game at a party or quick conversations in the hall. The guy who picked up the convo on his wireless headset went up to him the next day and told him in very specific terms, but without letting him know what he heard, that he should go and get a pregnancy test and make her take it. They were broken up by the afternoon, and the entire campus, very small campus, knew she manufactured a pregnancy to trap her boyfriend. Why she never transferred I will have no clue, because for the remainder of her college career guys avoided her like the plague. Even to the point where, if someone saw a freshman or naive guy hitting on her at a party, there was always someone to pull that guy aside and give him the warning. Back in the Yahoo chat days, before we had our game servers, about 8 of us were in our user made doom/ut/anything room where anyone could join us and play. In comes some kid and locked the mic up and wouldn't let loose, talking all sorts of shit. So in comes the 1K bot booter that was ready for little sheets like this, since it was a common occurrence. So I let loose with an in-bomb. Since the mic was locked, we got to hear the blings and the yahoo, all the fun stuff. This kid was going ballistic apeshit after 2 to 3 minutes of hysterical laughter from us. I shut it off. Kid's comp was frozen from the IMS taking up all the RAM, but the mic was still on after the blings and the screaming stop. In comes mom yelling to the kid to STFU, so the kid chimes up. The computer's being hacked. So mom starts screaming and grabs the phone and calls 911. This lady has the operator on speaker telling the poor dude that their computer is being hacked and how the FBI needs to get to their house right now. Then she starts talking to the computer, telling the hacker to please leave or he will be arrested, all while still on the phone with 911. She then tells the kid to put a towel over the monitor so the hacker could not see though, and spy on them while she's telling the op her address. Then dad comes in, mom explains the hacker situation, and we hear dad say, "See, I told you I don't want this shit in my house," with really loud voice, and 10 seconds later we hear the kid screaming dad no, and we hear smashing, like baseball bat to monitor smashing. Then the kid's little icon went offline, and then 5 minutes later logged out of the room. We felt bad for about 10 minutes, and wish we could have recorded it. And this would be a tough one. I've heard so much weird shit over vent/mumble, it's ridiculous. For a while I was in a WoW guild that was good, but pretty much every member of my raid team was either an addict or just someone who enjoyed their drugs. So almost every raid we were having to deal with some people that were too high. I had a drug problem back then, and some nights I would use DXM and raid, and oddly enough was better on DXM. One night our raid completely went to sheet. Right as we pull Professor Putricide, my raid leader took a nice long hit out of his bong, then yells, "God damn it, Laura, why did you pack me a bowl of spice?" And we can still hear them arguing as one of our tanks keys in. Guys, I think I railed too much oxy. I'm nodding out hard. At this point all of us are laughing our ass off and still trying to hold things together. Since my raid leader was unable to really say anything coherent, I took over for calling out everything. However, I was pretty goddamn blasted on some DXM that night and it hit me like a truck about 5 minutes into the fight. My vision got pretty distorted and I called out off tank, "Get in your fish thing." His reply, "What fish thing? There is nothing that resembles a fish on my screen. You know, the fish looking thing you're supposed to get in. There is no fish, just do your job or else I'll shove that fish up your ass." We down at him, but just barely. We then decided that everyone was too high to continue, so we called it a night for raiding and just stayed on vent talking. Those were good times. I would be shocked if anyone who heard this is here, but I, myself in an effort to get an annoying little kid out of outgame in GTA 4 on XBL, spouted out some of the most what the fuck strangest shit I have ever said online. The story. So I was in a free roam game on GTA 4 on XBL when I was about 23. All of us about the same age by pure luck and just having a blast driving around Liberty City and causing mayhem and getting into group police chases. Then out of nowhere enters a 13 or younger player. We are just ignoring this kid when he starts just going, "Hey, insert XBL tag," over and over and over. No one responds, so he keeps calling out other players. After about 5 minutes of it, he decides to call out my XBL tag, and being annoyed as shit I decided to respond and see what happens. Now up to this point, everyone in game wasn't even pay attention to him anymore, even avoiding the part of the map he was on. The first words he said back to me was, "Hey Nova, stop faking your mom." No, not one to shy away from shit like this. I instantly respond. What will follow next is our back and forth till he left the game. NKF equals me annoying little shit. ASL equals the kid. ALS, "Hey Nova, stop faking your mom." NKF, "Well, my mom is a fat fuck, so who else will she get?" Setch from a moment of silence in the game. ALS, "Hey Nova. Hey Nova." NKF, "What?" ALS, "Stop faking your dad." NKF, "Well, who do you think taught me to fuck my mom?" At this point I'm just decided to escalate what I can when he talks to me to the next level. ALS, "Hey Nova, stop faking your sister." NKF, "But my sister is a cork hound and isn't getting shit from dad." ALS, "Hey Nova, stop faking the dog." NKF, "Hey, beaches need Setch too." Now at this point I'm just making up shit in short response to what he says. But what he said next made me just think, fuck this little shit. Let's crank this shit to 11 and see if this shuts him up. ALS, "Hey Nova, stop faking the hamster or gerbil, one of the two." NKF, "Oh fuck yeah, those things are awesome. They're like living faking condoms, man." ALS, "W, what?" NKF, "Dude, you never used a hamster as a condom. God, chicks love that shit. The way the squirm and wiggle drives them nuts as it's going bad shit crazy in them, and it feels great as a guy. But dude, make sure you pull out of your girl, cause when you blow, it's blows, literally, so a bit of cleanup and prep is needed." At this point we all see that the annoying little sheet's XBL tag pop up stating they have left the game. There was an awkward moment of silence, and from a fellow player I hear this: "FP, Nova, thanks for getting rid of that annoying little sheet, but never, ever talk about hamster or faking again." We all laugh and go back to causing mayhem in Liberty City. Am I ashamed? A bit, but at least in the end there was no longer an annoying little sheet trying to troll people in our game. The method was extreme, but the results paid off. So for a TLDR, annoying little sheet tries to piss me off by saying I fuck the family and family pets. I turn it around at him, making shit up and freak him out to the point that he left the game to troll somewhere else. I was on vent raiding World of Warcraft when I heard some kid right before a pool said, "Hold on guys, not this sheet again." I guess he dropped his headset or something on his push to talk button, so the whole conversation was heard. This is how it went. Granted, this might be off just a little bit, but I remember this because I couldn't stop laughing. Kid playing COD 4 or Halo 3 at the time. I apologize for the language I'm about to use. How about you go FCK yourself, Yunja? Kid's brother, excuse me, what did I just hear? Probably kid's mother. Hold on guys, not this sheet again. Kid, what did you just say, you idiot? Kid's mother, nothing. Leave me the FCK alone and watch your faking TV. Kid's brother, no, you faking. Did not just say that. Kid's mother. Give this about 10 seconds of ominous silence. Insert sound effects. Boom boom plo plo. Mom, stop it, you dumb BTCH. Get the FCK off of me. Kid, it sounds like this kid is getting roughed up. He is getting slapped around by his mom all while he's cursing and crying. I was on the call crying from laughter. I'm from a strict Asian family where respect means everything. This kid cursed at his mom, called her a bitch, told her to FCK off, and got the living shit kicked out of him. Now this wasn't the most awkward part. The most awkward part was the whole raid just stopping everything and hearing this unfold. Some guy ended up saying maybe we should switch chats. Everyone stayed. The kid kept getting beat up until the point where he was hyperventilating and couldn't breathe. The guy got back onto vent and said, "Hey, sorry about that guys, someone was at the door." I whispered him and said, "Dude, you left your mic open." He logged off and came back on the next day and apologized. To this day I'll never forget this confrontation between a mother and his child. It made me realize how crazy white people can be equals P. TLDR. Kid tells his mom to wait for his potion to expire or leave without him. At the time I was probably like 20 to 21 years old and playing WoW during kata with a 16 to 17-year-old kid. Like all young gamers, he was pretty good at everything he did. We met by smashing in PvP. So finally, after listening to him complain about gemming / enchanting all his new gear and stuff because of how broke he was, I show him one of my more abusive ways to make gold in the game. It involved farming ember silk with a potion of treasure finding in Deep Home. It was extremely lucrative, especially if, like me, you had every profession to break down everything you find into mats and make bags and stuff from it. Well, he was going through his 3rd or 4th potion when I hear his mom come into his room telling him to get ready to go out for dinner. He says okay and acts as if he is going to do it. So he keeps farming, completely not getting ready for dinner when his mom comes in, much angrier. The conversation was as follows. Mom in very angry tone, "Get your ass downstairs," and in the car, him completely nonchalant says, "I can't for about 17 more minutes." She loses her temper even worse and just starts screaming at him about how he is wasting his life. This is when I lose my shit because of his response. He says in a 100% serious tone to her, "There is now 11 minutes left on my potion. You either wait or leave without me." I begin laughing hysterically because if I ever said that to my mom, she would have zero clue what I'm talking about. This is when I find out I'm on his speakers and not headset. So she then yells at him even more and harsher because she knows I'm laughing at her. Well, I finally chime in saying I'm not laughing at her, I'm laughing at her son for having the balls to say you wait on my potion or leave. After explaining why I'm laughing so hard, which took some time, his potion was up and he logged off. She was in a much better mood, lol. I was the one who did the strange thing. When Warhammer Online was about to come out, me and all my friends decided to get it and play together. I was highly anticipating it. However, when the game came out, due to conflicting schedules and whatnot, I had yet to play with a single one of my friends for the first week of the game's release. Well, one day I'm doing this public quest when my best friend comes online. We immediately get on TeamSpeak and I'm finally having fun. It takes him a while to get to where I'm in game, so he only arrives within the last minute or two of the quest. Where there was about 2 minutes left, I suddenly feel a rumble in my bowels. Not really worried, I let out what I thought would be an ugly fetched, but to my dismay, was a full-blown diarrhea pants full of sheet shart. I immediately let out a row sheet, and my friend on mic asked what was wrong. I just sheet myself. He immediately began laughing his faking as off as a best friend should. Meanwhile, I was debating the current dilemma I was in. There is only 2 minutes left in the quest, and I was currently at the top of the leaderboard to receive the best loot from completing it. Do I wait it out, finish the quest, get the loot, then take care of my sheet-filled pants? Or do I say fuck it to the loot and deal with a very pressing matter? I went with the first one. For 2 excruciating minutes, I sat there, pants full of sheet, gritting my teeth, and cursing over them as my best friend of almost 20 years is struggling to breathe from laughing at me. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. And then my internet dropped out. Screaming in frustration, I quickly relogged, adding even more precious sheet-covered minutes to the situation. When I finally got online, the loot chest had disappeared, and I was left with nothing but sheety pants. I cursed loudly and took care of what I should have done 5 minutes ago. After I was done, I immediately uninstalled the game and never played again. My friend still gives me shit to this day about it, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Alright, I was going to make a throwaway, but fuck it, I'm lazy and my newborn is due to wake up soon. Not overheard, it was actually my weirdness broadcast. I once didn't realize I had my mic on while playing with a randomized team on StarCraft. Had a headset on, so my husband wouldn't know I was on his account, because he had HOTS, and I didn't at the time. I think it was one Korean kid and 2 other Americans in a 4v4. It was like 2 AM here. My daughter woke up hungry, so I decided to nurse her. I have a technique for hands-free nursing while gaming that involves a baby carrier and a boppy. Anyway, I have a nursing rhyme I used to sing her involving the use of the words booby and nom-noms, repeated a lot, with her name and terms of endearment, of course. My teammates kept quiet through this. However, my daughter was teething and decided that night would be her first and only night to bite. I literally screamed, holy faking shit, kid, you have goddamn teeth. That's where my teammates lost it. I actually remember once saying something about how the rhyme was uncomfortable, but the scream was hilarious and someone else telling me they thought it was a joke or something, because he had played with my hubby before. I never did explain to my husband what his acquaintance was talking about, or why I randomly stopped asking to play HOTS. I was playing Halo 3 with some friends, and we had amazing team play, and this particular weekend we were on fire. Deathmatch or objective, we crushed the resistance, and had a blast. That was until the dreaded Team Slayer on Valhalla against a full team of 50s. In Halo 3 they had a 1-to-50 ranking system, where rank actually was supposed to mean skill and 50s high usually meant demigods depending to the mortal realm to crush blasphemous heathens. My team were food, sure, for public games, but nowhere near their level. However, we decided to do our best and try to teach it like a learning experience, see how the pros do it. Game starts and a quick maneuver to the midfield and I've secured the vital Spartan laser, while old Hawkeye covers my retreat with his sniper. A well-aimed laser later, and their Banshee is a smoldering heap of junk and the sky's our playground. They try to do a hit and run with Warthog, but once again only humiliation awaits. My teammates and I are looking at each other and wondering what's happening. Are these guys giving us free kills as a handicap or something? They're supposed to be good but play horribly. What the fuck? Suddenly the speakers buzz and a voice of madness and despair fills the living room. Someone has turned on their mic on the other team. Cue a flood of blatant insult and racial slur delivered by a young boy whose voice falters him not only once, but twice, and he squeaks like a bird. Of course we all are light, and he gets madder, threatening to do all kinds of unspeakable stuff to us, our parents. We were winning by a mile, and it was painfully obvious these guys either buggy their accounts or at least got boosted by friends, and we made sure to tell them, ask how much a 50s high cost these days, etc. Thus only made the squeaker every angrier, and he just started screaming. No words anymore but just noticed, and safe to say I'm sure he needed a new controller after that game. Well, we won by a mile, and in the post-game lobby Squeaker now screams about aimbits, wall hack, host bridging, any cool hacker word he can think of, mixed with the usual insults. It was fun for a while, but now it was just tiresome, and talking to the kid had no effect. I look at my friend who sits next to me in the couch and I see how a smile of pure evil spreads across his face. Ever so slowly he removed his headset, lowers it to his behind, and releases a massive fat right in the microphone. Silence. Utter silence spreads in the post-game lobby. Then I hear another teammate whisper ever so softly, "Dude, he just fetched it in your ear." MR50 and friends immodest leaves the lobby never to be seen again, and we just can't stop laughing at my friend and his ingenious but bizarre way of handling the squeaker. TLDR met a loudmouth squeaker that ducked at gaming. Friend let the mother of all facts rip in main chat. Squeaker left. I really miss playing this Barks 360 before they added party chats. I really enjoyed the smack talk and random jibber jabber from players. But I have two that I remember from years ago. My gamer tag has 420 at the end because it's my birthday. I was in a lobby in Cody for a long time because I was playing well. By well I mean having a 5.00 plus K/D. This full clan of cool stoners was on the other team and asked if I was smoking too, and I said no, I don't smoke, it's just my birthday. One guy was completely in, or that one would be born on 420, and asked me if I was the chosen one. So I went the next few hours known as the chosen one. The other one was playing zombies with 3 guys I didn't know. There was a black guy in there, and his wife was yelling periodically at him about playing all day, and he was kinda ignoring it for about 30 minutes or so. Then finally she got close to him and started at it again, and he just paused and said jokingly, "Woman, you don't interrupt a black man when he's trying to save the world." I sat back like, oh shit. It's about to go down, she's gonna freak the fuck out, and I'm about to get a front row seat. I hear silence for a few seconds, then I heard them both laugh, and she never said anything about him gaming after that. That man has my respect for life. The most faked up was one of the last raids I ran with a particular group. We'd been playing together for several years. One of the guys had been on a steady downward spiral into a bottle all that time. I'll admit we were all a bit in denial about how bad his drinking had gotten, and that's on us. There was this 14-year-old in the raid. We didn't let her on vent, but she was a decent player and pretty fun for a kid. I sort of knew her parents because they both played, and her mom had talked to me about the group before letting her join. We weren't exactly a family raid, but several people had their kids in the guild. Outside of vent it was pretty PG-13, and by then I knew all the members pretty well. Or so I thought. Well, being 14, she developed a crush on the progressing alcoholic, and being wasted out of his mind he started flirting back. We were all horrified/shocked, and didn't really know what to do. Finally, after a few minutes of dead silence on vent, one of the more chill guys in the raid just says in this cold as fuck voice, "Name, there isn't even grass on that field." The guy faking tries to defend it, and at that point we all jumped in. He dropped raid before he was kicked. Group broke up not long after that. It wasn't 100% due to that incident, but it sure didn't help. TLDR, in the depths of alcoholic misery, Guildmate reveals pedophilic tendencies. It's been some time since it's happened, but I ruined to scammers for a little while in TF2. It all started when I was on a trade server, trolling about with some of the perks, while sometimes checking to buy/sell stuff. That was when Tweedledee and Tweedledum joined. One of them began by blabbering about some raffle they would have, offering an unusual to the winner, who would have to pay 1 key to enter. The trick of it was simple. The schmucks would all pay a key for said, including the second guy, and then the raffle takes place. The previously mentioned second guy would always win, making it all look legit, before they both jumped ship for another server. Everyone on the server immediately called BS, ranging from the supposed value of the hat compared to the keys, and to the fact that the two bosses had quite an extensive trading history. Realizing they had been caught in the act, the charlatans immediately ran. But I wouldn't let those two sheets vanish into the sewer that easily. I looked up one of their profiles and selected the option that would connect me to the same server they were on, where I caught them again attempting to swindle people of their valuables on a trade server. I called them out on it and was soon backed by server administrators who quickly got rid of them. Again and again they would flee to another trade server, myself hot on their heels, unhindered by their profane insults coming from the 11-year-old mouth of one of them, and again they would be banned. They logged off in due time, and the occasional check on their account info continues to produce a climbing number of days in which they haven't logged back in. I don't know if they fled Steam, I don't know if they somehow got banned from the game, and I don't know if they simply changed accounts or announced their old ways and repented. All that I know is that for one day, 2 kids learned what can happen when you try being sleazy. I was playing Diablo 2 LOD a couple years back, and I always played with these 2 guys, Vic and Hydrop. We were always on at the same time, so it always worked out. I logged on after school one day, and there's just one of the 2 buddies online, Hydrop. I create a game to load up some mules from Mfing, runs the night before and he joins, but doesn't say a word, and isn't on TeamSpeak. I asked where Vic was, and he doesn't reply. At first I see him wandering around the rogues encampment dropping stuff, and picking it back up. I asked what he was doing, and he abruptly leaves the game. Of course inside was messaged him to see what's up and he replies, Vic's gone. I downloaded TeamSpeak for the first time, and we spent from 7 PM-ish till 5 AM the next morning talking till he crashed and fell asleep. It sucked, but it sucked more for him. Apparently Vic was Hydrop's sister. We played together for a few years, and it was a blast. We waded through Beasts of Nightmare and the Minions of Hell, for fun. Cancer put a stop to that. Hydrop never logged on again. I don't know what happened to him, and I never knew either of their real names. I won't forget Vic or Hydrop or the fun times we had. That was my first open mic experience sometime in 2004. Back when I played Halo 2 on XBL, had a few guys we played with all the time. One day we randomly get matched up against this kid who sounded like he was 8 or 9 years old. He would call us, and in some high-pitched little kid voice be like, "Oh yeah, beach and teabag us." He was a dumb little kid, so we invited him to play with us. He would like shout into the mic and just ramble on about stuff. We would just laugh at him and troll him, and he was pure entertainment. We play matches with him for about a month, convincing him we got hacked, and just shoot him, and team kill him and all this, and just listen to his frustration. One day our friend convinced him that there were Halo 2 mini games that were a few dollars extra. One of them was called Jizz in My Hair. We just all convinced him, "Oh yeah dude, you haven't heard of this mini game? It's awesome. Go ask your mom if you can buy it." We hear him in the background go ask his mom, and a 9-year-old dad voice ask his mom for Jizz in Your Hair mini game. We hear the conversation go on and this little kid whining and crying no no no, and his mom walk up to his Xbox, and I'm guessing just unplug it, because he logged off. Never heard from him ever again, RIP. I play Counter-Strike with a group of people while on our Mumble server. We would regularly scrim with other clans, but this one night we just couldn't stop laughing at what happened. This is still talked about in the Mumble group. We just finished a scrim, and one of the guys in our group said, "Hey, I gotta be right back. Don't start without me." We heard him fumble around with his headset, which we assumed was him taking it off. A few moments later we hear it all. "Oh god yes. Fuck yeah. Oh MMMM. A few of us realize he's masturbating and left his mic on. We all start laughing to the point of crying. Some of us tried to tell him to stop, but apparently he muted us instead of his mic. Oh god yes. Do it Rag. Rag is one of the guys in the Mumble group. Rag nearly fell over in his chair after laughing so hard. Eventually it came to an end, and we heard our friend fumble with his mic again. "Sorry, I had to let the cat out. What's so funny? What I miss?" Rag answered, "If you wanted me that badly, all you had to do was ask. What are you talking about? Oh god no. It happened years ago, and we still bring it up from time to time." I was once playing Damned with a group of friends on TeamSpeak. Damned is a game where one person is a horror monster, everyone else is a survivor trying to find their way out of the location alive. A team horror survival game with a friend playing as the monster. We were at some kind of asylum, and I was a monster, a small slow-moving creepy girl. If I stand close enough to the survivors for an extended period of time, it allows me to switch to kill mode where I scream really loud, run really fast, and can kill anyone in one hit. I had already killed 2 of my friends, only 3 were left. Of course I was silent on the mic, and doing a really good job of terrorizing these guys. I had myself charged up, so I could switch to kill mode whenever I wanted. I just had to find them first. After roaming the halls aimlessly for a bit, the guys are getting really nervous because they have not seen me for a bit. They are all really quiet. I see some flashlights around the corner and things are starting to get really tense. Right as I switch to kill mode and sprint toward them, one of the guys starts yelling to his mom how he wants some hot dogs, while everyone else is screaming and trying to run away from me. Now, anytime there is a really tense or dramatic moment in whatever game we are playing, someone always starts yelling for hot dogs. I played WoW with this kid, can't remember his name, but he was I think a well-off sort of dude in California. One evening, we were on Ventrilo. He used to go on Craigslist and prank call people and speakerphone it over Vent. I have 2 stories with this. 1. This one time, he called this dude who was selling Pokemon cards or something, or maybe it was a WoW time card, I can't remember. So he calls him, the dude is nerdy as fuck, and he sets up a buy with him. The dude lived like 4 hours away from him. He told the kid to meet him at some mall he found on Google Maps in 30 minutes. 30 minutes later, the dude calls him. My buddy goes, I'm standing by the bushes. The kid seller was like, what bushes? You can tell the type of exchange this was going to be. These bushes. No, the ones over here. Just go around the corner. I see you. Look to your left. He kept this kid going for like 20 minutes. It was hilarious. Dude eventually told him to fuck off. Awesome. 2. The second time, he called this girl who posted something like, I need money for rent. Will do just about anything for money. He calls her. He says, in the straightest voice the entire time, I want to pay you $100. I want to take you out to dinner, a fancy dinner wearing fancy clothes. That's all I want to do. I just want to have a nice time with you. I will pay for everything. The girl was so excited and obviously surprised that this was all he wanted to do. So, a few minutes later, she says, let me call you back. She calls back to set up a meeting. This is where it got really funny. He says, I just have to ask you a few questions before we get together. Are you respectable? Are you clean? What clothes do you wear? Where do you work? Etc etc etc. At one point, he goes, are you in any way a cyborg? She gets confused, nervous, standoffish. At this point, she digs deeper into what he actually wanted to do on their date. He says, well, like I said, I'd like to take you out to a fancy dinner, pay for everything, and then pay you $100. I'd also like for you to come back to my house. Well, she's like, oh okay, this is what he actually wants. Dude goes, it's my mom's house. I have a large room upstairs. You can live with me, in my closet. That way you won't have to worry about rent. I will feed you. My parents buy lots of pizza. You can eat the pizza. It could be our pizza. Girl tells him to fuck off and hangs up. Brilliantly awesome. I have another cool prank story with some other dude too, but fingers are tired. Maybe later. One for me. I've got a couple. One kid repeatedly screeching at the other players in a piercing tone to stop killing me. Best approximation I can give. Each time someone shot at him and or killed him. I originally thought it was some gag. Then he started actually calling people by username and talking to them as they told him to shut up. Another kid who, like above, was definitely too young to play the same game, but oddly endearing for his over-enthusiasm, given that neither the game or server as a whole, a small now defunct community one where all the regulars knew each other and spoke on mic a lot, wasn't particularly serious. I was on his team, and the other team suddenly ambushed. Kit, fall back, fall back. Regular user, fall back. What the fuck? It's probably one of those you had to be there moments, but it's still hands down one of the funniest moments I've witnessed on a server. Good old TF2. Edit. There was also that time when I was on a server that burst into a performance of the Mr. Hanky song towards Christmas. It was faking beautiful. Also, on that regular defunct server I mentioned, a weird guy called Ghosty who played an odd sort of static that muted all the other mic channels. That was faking weird. 3 things, all from the old COD 1 days. I had joined a clan of what turned out to be some pretty rough people. One late night it's just 2 of us in TS. The other guy is drunk. He says be right back. I hear a door squeak. Then I hear him start peeing. Mixed along. Surprisingly clear sound. I can hear the acoustics of his toilet. Way healthy prostate, I'm sure. When he's done he says back now and I say, so what mic you got? It has awesome fidelity. He didn't get it. The same guy's playing. I hear a door bang open and a kid comes in the room yelling something about someone being shot. The guy says stop faking around, and the kid screams serious. The kid goes into detail about what seems to me to be a gang hit on somebody just down the street. He then yells that somebody said to grab the guns and get his ass in gear. The dude says I gotta go, but leaves the mic on. I hear yelling, lots of noise, stuff being tossed around. The mic was left on, his character AFK for a long while before I final logged out. Never heard from him again. The entire clan in TS and rival clan leader joins. They start talking about how they are going to give him grief. I get auto-balanced, so switch to the opposing chat, but I have a second PC that I join clan chat with, so I can listen to them. I'm trying to win for sure, but I was also trying to keep the opposing clan guy alive. They were messing him up bad. He is beyond pissed. I've never heard someone so worked up. After about 15 minutes of steady cussing I notice he is breathing hard. He sounds like he is going to barf. Grunting, panting. I say you okay man? He tells me thanks for the help, cusses up a storm about the rest of the clan, then drops out of the game. The next day I find out he is dead. Massive heart attack. Oh man, I've been waiting to tell this story to the internet for a while. So I'm playing a game of Halo 2 online, back in its heyday, when I join a random team slayer game with a bunch of players. The first thing I hear, before the game splits us up into teams, is, oh man, we are gonna take their salad. I do a double take, or its ear-oriented equivalent. We are going to what now? Well, the guy just keeps saying it, in different ways, the whole match. We are gonna take their salad, guys. I'm gonna go take their salad. We are totally gonna take their salad. The best part is that when he wasn't holding down the button to speak to the whole team, Halo 2 had this great feature called proximity voice, so you could hear him fade in and out as he wandered around the map. After every kill he was near, it was oh man, we totally took his salad, man, and I just took his salad, guys. I've got to figure he was high as a kite, because we lost that match by a landslide. I just remember that after that match, we ended up back in the wrap-up lobby, where he mentioned a simple, but profound, statement, oh man, they totally took our salad. Never saw him again. I like to think he's raiding the good Lord's lettuce patch these days. Mostly played FPS MP mods on PC, so microphones were rather rare. Most of the communication was behavior based, in-game. Still, had a few surprises. Beside the usual tornado alerts, the live burglary attempt, out of nowhere, the cracking sound of a door being forced open, and the guy on the mic freaking out. Hopefully the intruder ran away upon realizing someone was inside the house. The strangest thing I got was accidentally finding out that the two Serbians being completely drunk somehow knew one of my favorite obscure movie from the 90s. Told me they found a VHS of it somewhere and were drunkenly reciting the lines in the original dubbing. It was a very friendly and quite bizarre experience. Or that time I found out one of the best TF2 medic I ever got was a Turkish lad in his 30s, casually playing in an internet cafe once every 2 weeks. He kept his mic off the whole time to not broadcast the sound of the street. I really didn't expected gaming to be so global. Really made me realize how vast the gaming world was. All less heartwarming. Someone explaining me he's having regular epileptic seizures, but can't get proper full treatment where he lives, which is why he might be offline for 2 to 3 weeks, recovering from the latest one. It damages his memory, so he asked me to back up our few conversations. I hope he got better coverage now. The strangest thing I first heard in the early zeros were mic spammers though, the real ones, the gaming DJs sharing the most incredible remixes and original creations during live games. That was long before YouTube and all the other media sharing platforms, so what we were hearing was truly original stuff, carefully selected by the mic spammers then properly gold waff, so it would still sound good through the mic calm. I would even sit in spectators to keep on hearing their latest mixes. When I was 15 on Sparkslive, me and my 3 friends were playing Halo 3. 2 of my friends were IRL friends, and the third one was from Scotland or some shit. After a match, we were going into custom games, and the Scottish friend was leader. He started the game. During the countdown we heard him cough twice and mute his mic. In game he was standing still not moving. After about 1 to 2 minutes we heard him unmute his mic, and then drop the mic. His character in Halo was now spinning. After 2 hours, and he was still spinning, the dead theories were going crazy between me and my 2 IRL friends. Nothing we could do, either we lived in USA. So Hez playing Halo in that game for hours, spinning endlessly until his controller ran out of batteries, like 6 hours, and made him AFK to the lobby. We didn't see him log back online for 2.5 weeks. Finally he came back online. Turns out he had a heart attack. We always knew he had a heart problem that he took meds for. He had a heart attack on the mic and passed out for 7 hours until his mom found him. He was like 17, I think. He almost died because he ate a Dorito the wrong way, making him cough and choke on it, which caused a heart attack. As someone who has played multiple online games, I got quite a few strange things, although the best would be from my rank 5's experience in League of Legends. Our team has had many iterations. My favorite must have been the original lineup consisting out of me, a real life friend of mine, 2 Norwegian brothers and this British bloke. We spent almost every night on Skype, playing games, queuing together and playing games to just get through the nights. We always had great fun. So there was this one night, as we were waiting for the Brit to come online. It was rather late when he did show up, but we were aching for a game, so we just started it up, waiting for him to get online on Skype. 2 minutes in, we hear him entering the call, and after a slightly slurred hello there it all began. What followed us giving up the first kill of the game was a 5-minute long Disney-esque song from the Brit, filled with antisemitism. Off the top of his head he just made it up. We were suddenly treated to the racist version of The Sounds of Music. The sounds of awe and astonishment that came from us only made him louder, and after those 5 minutes, a hiccup and silence. Now, I'm not a racist, but I couldn't help clapping at the end. Honest to God, the guy was the embodiment of Disney villain songs. When I was 15 years old, now 23, me and my damn Canadian friend from down the road were in his living room gaming on Halo 3 and eating things that were terrible for our bodies. At the time we were on Guardian, and he was going for the shotgun. A member of his own team wouldn't shut up and tried stealing the shotgun before my damn Canadian friend got the gun, yet he saw this as unacceptable, so he betrayed him by getting behind him and beating him in the back of the head so he couldn't steal it from him. The player over the mic was in the middle of quoting Baby Luigi from the latent, shitty as Mario games that had developed over the 2000s. Being betrayed, he started aggressively yelling at maximum volume cork, but held it like a Goku transformation, more so like Karak. Over and over and over until we started yelling ridiculous crap back at him over the Sparks live chat. It was all we could do to drown his ass out. We proceeded to tell him things like we draped him, you're an asshole for trying to steal shotgun, and other stuff like you're a faking noob and whatnot. The guy didn't care and kept yelling. So I told the fact that he was a piece of shit for being Australian. I could hear his accent after deciphering the advanced yelling patterns of Kark. We hoped that he would break character. He did. He then replied with "you dumb faking American bastard." So twirling my 15-year-old troll mustache I replied with more ridiculous obscenity. I yelled, "I'll fuck your horse." Now here's the weird part and the very reason I made this longest thing. He got super offended by this and started sending mic-recorded messages to our gamer tags inbox describing him rapping our entire family and that we'd never fuck his horse, no matter how hard we try, in deep and very serious tones. To the point it was just faking crazy. That, sir, is the craziest thing I've ever heard over a mic during a video game. I was playing a pretty dank game of Bo 2 Zombies. My friends were out having lives, so I decided to wing it with some randoms. Okay, got matched with 3 mics and the game was on. After a few introductions, I was satisfied with my crew and we went through the usual routine. A couple of rounds in, one of the guys in the group started talking to his kids. "Dad, Johnny won't let me do X. Dad." To which my wonderful teammate replies, "Mary, oh my god. Quiet down or I'll give you some cold medicine to help you and your brother sleep. A little shocked, I paused to see if he'd laugh and admit that he's joking. Nope. Alright, I got power. A few minutes later, Dad. Mom won't wake up and I'm hungry. Mary, hush. I'll feed you something after this game. There's some cheese in the fridge, go eat that. Other kid starts crying. Kid, shut the fuck up. You'll wake your mother and she'll come beach at me. Do you want some cherry syrup? Crying continues. Fact sheet. Shut up, and he logs off. I'd like to think that most of the comments were said jokingly. It sounded like the kids were too young to understand what he was actually saying, but, yeah, no. I don't know, man. Too late, but I have a couple of good stories all related to one person. My friend's girlfriend played Halo 3 a lot on his Xbox, usually custom games. Occasionally we'd join and realize it wasn't him, and play a couple of games before leaving. Dominate, to be more accurate, not bragging, it's just she was so awful, one of those can't move whilst taking aim types. Anyway, eventually she gathered a bit of a following, presumably because she was a self-confessed female and quite flirty with any man online. My friend and I joined as per usual one time and we started getting mocked by a guy with a superiority complex or small man syndrome, so we proceeded to challenge their entire team to a match. There was 12 of them, 2 of us. Flawless victory, and 50 kills later, the players all dropped off and stopped with the smack talk. I stress this isn't bragging, we were average to good, not excellent players. Whilst this is funny, the weird times are stranger. The first incident was in a similar custom match. We were all just messing around and not playing particularly competitively. We were all killing each other in amusing ways and teabagging the bodies when someone made the mistake of teabagging this girl. The boyfriend actually had to come round to our house out of the blue to ask us not to do it ever again, as she got so livid every time and would scream the house down. The guy wasn't even mad, he was just begging us to not give him grief. The worst story, however, came when this girl met up, IRL, with one of her zealots, a 35-year-old nerd. She was 22, who was odd looking and strange chat. Sometimes he would have bursts of anger that would come out of nowhere. Anyway, true story, she cheated on my friend with this guy in his apartment while he was there. She was not quiet. Safe to say the relationship was swiftly ended. TLDR, crazy beaches be cray. Smack talkers are usually terrible gamers. A long time ago playing Halo 2, my friend got a random call from some guy and his friends in the UK claiming to be named Joe. We were young and all very stoned at the time and very confused as he was prank calling us and listing off all of these random facts about us and our city. It was pretty funny though. They were young and intoxicated as well, which made it pretty funny. An ocean separates us, but we both were just as bored. My username is Seabrook Midgelia, which is really short for the Seabrook Midgelia Gorilla Killer for Shilla Manila, coming over the hills to kill your family in the thriller of Manila while faking Jamila and eating some vanilla and crushing all of you motherfakers like Godzilla while smoking a roller in my villa. After many hours of video games I developed this name. I was pretty bomb player and wrecked shop at the first Gears of War and would yell that really fast and loud after a game of Winnage, or if someone pissed me off. They never had a reply to my credentials. I have a bit of a humorous story. My husband and I are both gamers, but I very rarely ever participate in anything that requires me to speak into a mic, like vent or TS. Since we are normally sitting side by side, I've just never bothered. One evening, I was folding laundry and needed his help with some sheets. I have a bum right arm, which makes everyday tasks difficult, but I'm also exceedingly stubborn about being as independent as possible. Long story short, I wanted to get it done and over with so I could go on a photography trip. I had asked for help a few times by now, and each time he got distracted. So, I grabbed what was handy, a folded over pair of socks. From the other side of the room, I chunked the wad of his socks to snag his attention and remind him there was work to be done. He's on vent, his speaker's pretty loud, and he says, "Ack, artillery socks." His clanmates were having a fit. All I hear is a mad cacophony of cackling. He still gets teased every now and again about being assaulted by socks. That's one of the strangest things that they've heard over vent. Was in a top WoW raiding guild, and one of the guild officers was kind of an own dick. You know, the kind of guy who took video games more seriously than his actual job and would make you feel shitty for messing something up, and he only helped you if it directly helped him. You know the kinda guy. To make a long and sad story short, one night the officer's son broke something while the guy was explaining an encounter to us, and while his microphone was still wide open he starts just beating the kid's ass. It wasn't like he was murdering the kid, but the smacks were plainly audible and the kid was begging his father to stop, all while 39 strangers listened in. Legit probably a good 30 to 45 seconds of this kid crying and getting smacked around by his dad. I've seriously never felt so helpless or awkward, and the guy comes back and just starts picking up where he left off, but me and a bunch of other people weren't having it. Suffice to say, that raid ended there, and his career as a guild officer as well, though he ended up staying with the guild. I actually ended up quitting that guild and shortly thereafter WoW as a whole. On the bright side, I was later told that his wife, who also played WoW, left him for another guild officer shortly thereafter, though she was something of a petulant bitch herself. I was a guild and raid leader on Warcraft during Wrath of the Lich King. We had a Ret Pally, Ashbrina, who was actually really good, but he was about 16. A few of us had been in a pickup group with him and asked him to join despite our otherwise 18 plus crowd. He fit in pretty well, but he couldn't raid past our raid times. Since it was his bedtime, his stepdad would come in and shut off the computer if he didn't get off right away. Sometimes his mic would cue and we could hear their arguments. Neither was very nice to each other. Toward the end of the expansion, he had just turned 17 or so and was signing up for our OTC to join the army when he graduated high school. I guess he was feeling extra ballsy that day, as when it came the end of raid, a few of us were staying on to do other stuff. His mic happened to cue and we heard, "Stepdad Ash, time to get off the computer Ash. Let me just play for a few more minutes, it's summer vacation. SD, how about you log off now, and you can play later another night Ash, how about you go fuck yours." Click. He disconnected seconds later from vent and a game and that was it. I heard from him a year or two later, and he told me that his stepdad cut the PC power cable with shears, and it took him months till they let him get a new cord. I've been waiting years to tell this story to the public. I was around 18 years old and still living at home. Was online with a few friends, and we got the idea to hold a LAN in my house at 9 PM on a weekday. Didn't really check with the parental, so needless to say they weren't happy. 3 teenage kids showed up with PCs. We went through with it anyway, but pretty soon my mom started getting pissed and saying things like we have to be up in the morning and they have to go home, they can't stay here. Didn't help we had set up near their room. She kept doing that, then leaving the room, and would come back out and yell some more, then just stand there giving us the silent treatment and waiting for us to pack up and leave. We were little punks and are still huge trolls, so of course we didn't listen. Anyway, the game is Counter-Strike, source. We're on some dust too, and we have the speakers blasting gunfire and callouts etc, and she's standing there in silence after yelling at us to leave. We die and everything is quiet for a few seconds until someone in game chat breaks the dead silence and the only thing he says is, "Scrotum." We were on the floor laughing. Mother wasn't happy at all, didn't change her tone or face or anything. We considered the experience worth and eventually packed up. TLDR, stranger breaks tense silence with only the word scrotum. I've had many, I doubt anyone will see this, but here it goes. So for many years I've been Skyping with 4 dudes. We'd play video games together and whatnot. One of the top stories goes like that. Mike, not the real name, got really pissed at John and tells him that he will find him and beat the shit out of him, which he did 2 weeks later. Forward few weeks after the beating, which I can tell you that John had it coming real hard, they got back on speaking terms. One day John's mother heard him Skyping and got on full rage because she forbid him to speak with Mike. By the way, we were like 20 years old at that time. Man, it was fun. She raged for about 40 minutes. I had my mic muted and laughing as I've never laughed. Mike was chilling and explaining her how John had it coming. John was trying to get his mom off the mic because she was embarrassing him. I don't really remember the conversation, but here are some still famous quotes from John's mom. "You ruined my family. I will hire someone to beat the shit out of you. I'm recording this, and you'll go to jail for abusing my son. My husband can't find a job because assholes like you. And many more. Another funny story is how one day Johnny got high and explained me how he's the CEO of a big company and how his dick is like 20 meters long. Probably super late to the party to get this noticed. This was probably 8ish year ago. Wow. Gears of War was great for multiplayer. The King of the Hill style game mode, an X, allowed you to talk garbage in between rounds to the other team. Everything about that game was beautiful to me despite its flaws. Met some crazy people on there, like GT, annoying goat, who would only make goat sounds. Never broke character and I probably played 10 plus hours with the guy. The best though was a New Zealand guy. He explained to us about the origin of the Maoris and the Morioris. We eventually heard his wife in the background and requested a chat with her. She was a sweet Kiwi. After some smutatious words got thrown her way, she explained how our American accents turned her on. One thing led to another, and she started to suck her husband's dick while listening to us wall bounce in 2-piece on the best MP game ever made. It just simply couldn't be imitated. It was a woman with a cork in her mouth on XBOX Live. And they eventually had sex. After the obvious finish he gets back on the mic and says, I'm good at 2 things. Fixing cars and pounding bussy. Easily the most faked up experience on the mic. So my friends and I have a running Google Doc of the best things we have said over Skype, usually while gaming. Some of my favorites are, they'll have a hissy fit until we give them a special cookie. His booty melted like a popsicle under your blowtorch of justice. It's like a nuclear suppository. A pinpoint nuclear butt fuck. You're the ramblings of an insane homeless man. My mom wasn't a pepper. Everything in life is a disappointment past dinosaurs. You get cards and backgrounds and goats. The traditional death Lamborghini being better than the traditional death Prius since 2007. Fats like red velvet cake. Good to eat, but not good for hair. In the immortal words of some dude I met online, backquote, if you can do this stealth I'll give you a blue job. Wouldn't they just look at the pile of dead bodies and be like, backquote, I'm not going into the underwear store. Sometimes you just gotta ask yourself, what would Space Jesus do? We're the FedEx of homoerotic drugs. I threw a stone and it caused a thermonuclear detonation of trees. Edit, formatting. Raiding on World of Warcraft a few years ago, our main tank was feeling queasy and had to go AFK for a minute, so we called a 10-minute break. Well, 20 minutes went by and we hadn't heard from him yet. We waited an additional 10 before someone called his cell phone. The caller put the phone on speaker so we could all hear the conversation. A woman answered the phone, which made everything extremely awkward because none of us knew the tank's real name. Hello. Hi. I'm looking for the owner of this phone. I don't know his real name. I play Warcraft with him. Oh ha ha ha. Yeah, he's here. He drank too much at dinner and has throwing up in the bathroom. Let me go tell him. Hey, your Warcraft friend is on the phone looking for you. Woo hoo hoo hoo. We all hear him furiously vomiting and started dying of laughter. We ended up calling it for the night. The next day, we find out that the woman was our tank's mother who had come over to tank's house for dinner, where they had a good bit of wine. I was playing with an old friend way back in the Halo 2 days. Double team, Beaver Creek, stand bead. Everyone who played Halo 2 matchmaking back then knew all about being stand bead. This is when the host player would hit the standby button on his modem, which would temporarily disconnect him from the other players. Since he was the host, anything he did during that time was good, and to everyone else in the game, they were all just disconnecting and lagging really badly. Anyway, we get into the game. Typical standby nonsense. Now in Halo 2 there was proximity chat. Glorious proximity chat. We are running around the map when we are able, and I've managed to grab the rocket launcher at this point. I pop through the teleporter behind the base, rocket in hand, to see this kid standing there on the other team, exasperated and heaving through his microphone as he backpedals away from me. He says, "Oh shit, he's right here. Mom, hit the standby button." Faking. Lost it. I have yet to find it again. One of the funniest damn things I ever heard Me and a couple buddies, at the time, about age 17, were playing a PS3 MMO, online multiplayer game, called DC Universe. You work together with other heroes or villains, to complete dungeons or raids. So we were playing with this one random kid, he was about 12. About halfway through the dungeon we start hearing what sounds like his mom talking to him. He ignores her for a few minutes, then starts retaliating back a little with "no, I don't wanna." We didn't know what was going on, but eventually found out that his mom wanted him to go to a younger boy's go-kart birthday party. He didn't want to. What kind of 12-year-old kid doesn't like go-karts? Him, "Mom, I don't want a Geo, he's stupid." Gasket blown. "You've been on this game all weekend. It's faking creepy." Him, "Mom, no, I'm not going." Me and my friend's jaw dropped and dying in background. Come here." Then all we hear was him, "Arsewig Master Boy 29 has left the dungeon." His young voice cracking shriek was literally cut off midway. It was the most dramatic "I'm faked" scream for life I've ever heard a kid his age make. We can only assume he received an as whooping so hard that he can no longer play video games. Was gaming with a buddy while talking to him on a voice chat program. I always use push to talk when gaming, but my friends on the other hand does not. He told me I'll be back in 10 minutes or so I have to eat dinner, so I say my goodbyes or whatever, and about 60 seconds later I hear moaning, and my first thought is oh damn, must be some pop-up or something, but that only lasted about 15 seconds before I realized my friend had never left the voice chat window and he also wasn't using push to talk. He was watching Born, and the Born he was playing was being picked up into his mic. I at first thought it was a joke or something, so I just kept quiet and shook it off thinking oh you, but about 30 seconds after that I hear deep grunts and a sort of clapping sound. He was jerking off and had forgot to close the chat window, so I heard everything. About a minute and a half had went by and I heard too much to just chime in and make a joke to defuse the situation. So I sat quietly listening to him jerk off for about 10 minutes, and I know what you're thinking, why didn't you leave the chat? This particular voice chat program makes a loud distinct sound every time someone either joins or leaves the chat room. And you want to hear the worst part? I never spoke to him about it. This was about a year and a half ago, and I don't even know if he knows that this happened. TLDR, my friend pretended to have to eat dinner so he could go and jerk off. He left the chat window open, and I awkwardly listened to him jerk off for 10 minutes. I think the most memorable experience I had wasn't too strange. I played a lot of Halo back then, mostly Halo, set to Halo 3. Halo 2 was my sheet. The only Halo game I've extensively played and reached maximum rank 50, Halo Ring, on. I mostly played Team Slayer. During the climb through matchmaking, I met more than a handful of crazes. Around 46, full moon I think, I had this really close game. It was on lockout and two of my guys had left at the start, leaving us 2v4. They ran circles around us at first, taking all the power weapons. We finally caught up and tied the score at 44-44. At this point, we were going 1 for 1, slowly creeping the score up. At 48-49, I found one of them at bottom lift, ready to chuck a grenade. I had taken fire from someone prior to entering lift room, so I had no shield. Unfortunately, I melee him right as the grenade left his hand, and I was instantly killed. Just as my lone partner got the 50th kill. In the post-game lobby, I could just hear the sound of what seemed like 10 to 15 people cheering over one guy's mic. After he left, my partner proceeded to call me horrible player. I'd still play the fuck out of H2 if I had it. A close second was a party of people who joined Ground War on MW2. They had variants of ERP as their clan tag and repetitively their own tag the entire time they were there. I'm probably a little late, but I was playing TF2 a couple years back when a guy joined my community server. He spoke over the mic and sounded just like Sean Connery. Funny in and of itself, but it gets better. I ended up dominating him in game, and he started saying about how he faked my mother, all the while still in character. Of course, all of my friends who were playing thought this was hilarious and egged him on. It got so in depth that he ended up being my long lost father. He ended up joining our games for the better part of that year, and I would always call him Pops. TLDR, my dad's seen Carnery. Edit. Another one, a guy joined and promised my friend that he'd take him on a date to Chick-fil-A if he was able to get a certain kill streak. My friend exceeded the challenge, by which point the guy who made the promise left. To this day it's a running joke that if my friend gets a certain number of kills in any game we play, that random dude will show up at his house with a bouquet of flowers and a gift card to Chick-fil-A. I'm probably late to the party, but back when I played DayZ Epoch religiously I had this clan that I played with. We had a team speak and everything. Well, one day I was playing with some guys and suddenly a very loud black lady could be heard in the background of one of the people I was playing with. He then went to mute his mic but failed. So thinking none of us could hear him, he started getting into this huge African American style argument with his wife/girlfriend about how he faking threw the cat away earlier that day because he was allergic. The woman was definitely not happy with this, and she was making sure he knew about it. Everyone else in the chat was dead quiet for about 5 minutes while this battle ensued. Finally the woman said the famous, "If that's your decision then get the fuck out," and she stormed out of the room. This is where it gets good. The mic was dead silent for about 30 seconds until suddenly we could hear slight sniffling, and then he starts to full out cry. This went on for another 5-ish minutes until he finally grabbed a hold of himself and unmutes his mic. He says, "Okay guys, I gotta go for a bit. See ya later," and we all are still stunned, so we didn't say anything. He leaves and that's the last time we ever heard from him again. TLDR, black man throws out cat and woman gets very angry and ends up ruining the relationship all while we could hear it on TeamSpeak. This guy I play World of Tanks with yells to his kids a lot when we play as a clan, and he doesn't use push to talk, so we hear him. He has a heavy accent, but I don't know what accent it is, and it makes it so much funnier. "You're not going out in those shorts. They're too short. Your ass is hanging out." To his daughter, they argued for a few minutes and I could hear his side of the convo and parts of hers. He refers to his son as boy when he's talking to the son. One time his son hopped on for him as a match started with the clan and said this. He said to say he's taking a sheet and to go to C3 the guy's our main caller, so he just relayed the instructions to the son. You just get a lot of snippets of his conversations with his family. He's not mean to them, he just yells because he wears a headset and doesn't realize how loud he is. He loves his kids as he's stated many times. Super cool dude. This is more of a really creepy situation that happened to me during an online gaming conversation. I was like 14 at the time and I can't remember if I was playing Halo 2 or NBA Live, but I was in a match and was ruthlessly talking shit to the other guy like the little 14-year-old shit I was. It got to the point where I was talking shit to this guy for quite a while, and he started to get upset and began to retaliate with threats and other insults. This went on for a while, and then the guy says something along the lines of, "I located your IP address. I'm coming for you tomorrow and I'll be wearing a black shirt and black hat. I'll be there with my dog around 6. He then left the match. I woke up the next morning kind of thinking about it, but didn't believe the guy. I went to a Harry Potter movie with my family that day, and it coincidentally ended around 5:45 or so. As we came around the corner to my street, I see my neighbor standing in front of his driveway talking to somebody. The person my neighbor was talking to was wearing a black shirt and black hat. He also had a dog on a leash. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My parents pulled up in the driveway. I got out of the car and made for the door. I looked back and the dude was staring at me. I scurried straight to my room and locked the door. Fortunately for me, nothing happened. To this day I think about it and wonder if it was just a coincidence or not. Either way, I was scared shitless when I saw that dude standing with my neighbor and definitely wasn't going to log on to Sparks Live for a while. I idled in our Ventrilo while playing Row. I was just grinding like it was my job when I suddenly hear some breathing. Okay, no big deal. Someone's mic was on. So I was all, "Yo, bro, your mic is on." Nothing. Fine. I'm sure my breathing gets intense when grinding. Then I heard this squishing sound. Okay. Getting weird. The breathing intensifies. I'm not worried yet. Then he moans. I blush. Then the squishing noise is becoming more recognizable and rhythmic. He's jerking off furiously. I make noises. I PM him. I PM my other guildmates. I sit there and listen. He's doing some serious edging, so by the time he finishes, it's nearly 45 minutes since his mic first went live. And when he finishes, he immediately leaves vent and another guildmate reveals himself. Part of me feels dirty that I listened to the whole thing, but I was hoping that I wasn't the only one with voyeuristic ears. TLDR, I listened to my guildmate jerk off. I don't know if this applies, but here you go just in case. I used to volunteer for a really awesome lady from New York City that raised money for Hurricane Katrina victims, Haiti victims, gay rights, lots of advocacy and non-profit business stuff. In her spare time she also ran the highest traffic sim in the virtual world, Second Life. It was an escort sim, but honestly felt more like a home for the girls than a job or club. Really great community lead by a really great lady. Anyway, I'd often help her with building or technical projects as needed. Ad board scripting, terraforming, security, all kinds of things. I was never a client or entertainer, but there were perks to the job. I got a lot of compliments, flirting, attention and sexy talk randomly here and there depending on the day and crowd. Well, one day I'm sculpting and shading some simulated pillowy snow layers around architecture of the club. The kind you might see in a picturesque Christmas scene. Halfway through the job, the random assistant that volunteered to help me that day ended up getting horny or something, I guess, and wanted to take a break for some sexy time. She had been very charming and was a seriously talented designer with great artistic feedback and recommendations, so I was more than happy to oblige. I must admit it was hot for just voice stuff. She was really into it, and I couldn't sense anything even remotely disingenuous. More about this later. Afterwards I get back to working on the build and notice the club was quieter than normal. I stopped and listened for a bit. Silence. I check my audio cable connections and volumes are fine. Still silence. Eventually one of the girls I know well says something like, "God, that was hot." Huh. I'm so confused. Then I look down. Mic muted. I haven't been that embarrassed in as long as I can remember, but the girls either really liked listening to me or were going out of their way to make me feel better, because I got a lot more attention than normal for a while after that. TLDR, volunteer accidentally gives a room full of girls an enjoyable show. Fact, I'm late to the party, but a few weeks back me and my buddies were all partied up in an Sparks Live party. We are high school buddies and all live in separate areas, so Sparks Live is the only way we still get to hang out, so to speak. Anyway, my one buddy, we'll call him Bob, tells us his girlfriend just got home. He had been gaming all day because he didn't have school that day. Keep in mind that Bob is ex-military and now back in college, so he's a little disconnected with the average 18 to 19-year-old group of freshmen. Basically, we hear his girlfriend get home and start jabbing at him in the background. "Why are you always in your room playing video games? You're like a vampire in here. Don't you get bored?" Bob is just staying real calm, but you can hear the irritation in his voice as he tells her, "I'm hanging out with my friends. This is the only way we get to kick it." She keeps going as we are just sitting there listening, and finally he snaps, "These are my only faking friends. I came back from fighting a faking war and now I go to school with a bunch of liberal buses who don't know a faking thing about the real world. Why are you attacking me right now?" It turned into this pretty bitter back and forth until it abruptly ended. We immediately get the "Bob has left the party" alert, and we just kinda sat there in silence for a couple seconds until our other friend just breaks the silence with, "Welp, Bob is definitely not getting laid tonight." Pretty funny looking back on it, especially since he was in a bad mood due to yours truly having just beaten him in NHL. TLDR, beat my friend in NHL, prevented him from sexing his girlfriend. Not gaming, but I used to work at a call center and I'd call people to do surveys. Because I was considered a top producer, I often trained the new hires, meaning I'd sit with a headset on next to them without a mic and listen to them do surveys with people, then give them feedback on their performance. This one time we were doing a survey for NASA after the Lisa Nowak scandal, basically asking people benign questions about, do you know what NASA does? Did you know they invented the car seat? It was a 30-minute survey that was cleverly disguised PR. At the very end of the survey we asked a question like, have you read about NASA in the news recently? Which is when people would be like, yeah, something about some crazy beach and a diaper. Anyway, we are doing this survey when all of a sudden the respondent, a woman in her 20s or 30s, starts to sound a bit winded, like she's running around the house. Then she starts cursing under her breath. She was sort of answering questions arbitrarily, but I was encouraging my trainee to keep going. I don't know if I can finish this sheet. Oh fuck, yeah, I can't finish this survey, the lady said. I mean, mugged the trainee and mouthed the words "don't fuck it up" and made her convince the woman we were almost finished and to just hold on. Okay, sheet, whatever. Yeah, hurry it up. Next question. As we continue through the survey it's getting more and more tense. We actually hear the woman panting now. It's getting kind of funny and I'm laughing a bit, but trying to keep my cool. Oh fuck, we hear the woman scream, oh my god, there's shit everywhere. I jumped across the table and hit the mute button on the mix so me and my trainee could start laughing. We were in tears listening to this woman completely screaming. We could hear the water rushing and everything. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, we were in tears. I don't know why she didn't hang up the phone, but she just kept on. I told the trainee to get it together and get back on the phone and finish the survey, which we did. So the story was that I guess she'd decided to take the survey because she was on the toilet, but either it broke or it started backing up. So she was running around her house looking for something to fix it with until eventually the bowl burst or water started rushing out. But I got the very distinct impression she was knee deep in shit. Oh my god, words can't describe how funny it was. Other than when the overflow initially happened, she was so calm during the whole thing, kind of like, in disbelief. Oh my god, like, there's actually shit everywhere. What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? Oh my god, I'm so faked UHH. What was that question again? Yeah, a 5 yeah, somewhat strongly agree. Oh my faking Christ. Yeah, up, 7-inch hiller. I, at the time 16 male, used to play CS 1.4, maybe 1.5, I don't know, it was a long time ago, with this girl, early 20s. We used Yahoo voice chat, I think, while playing. One day I found out more about her, and my first training in kink. She picked up a call, and forgot her mic was on. Well, turns out she owed a setch line and a BDSM dungeon, like Stone Dungeon, that she would also do cam work out of, before it was cool. She turned out to be hot and have a good KTD. Over the years I heard some kinky stuff. The first one was the strangest to me. It was a guy who called and he was in his late 20s and his little 15-year-old sister just got a new boyfriend. He wanted to get his little sister's boyfriend to toss his salad while he jerked off, smelling his sister's soiled panties, finally finishing in her panties. He had some of her panties with him. I only heard her side of the call, that's all I could make out. When she got back on the line with me, I asked what the fuck that was. She did not realize she left her mic on. She told me to think of the sickest thing I could then, and that was someone's kink. She gave the first 2 minutes free and a lot of guys would finish within 90 seconds. These mic issues happened a lot but not often over the year, but the first one was always the strangest, because I was super young at the time and really did not know much. It's not so much what I heard as to who I was playing with. It started with me playing a game with a few friends, and over the course of a month, I realized the game was more of a large community of a few hundred people. One of the clans was for the younger crowd that just enjoyed laughing and joking around all the time. Another was the serious kickers who would win every tournament and talk a lot of shit, 20-ish-year-olds. Lastly was a clan that I knew was older and had been around for a few years. They were maybe 40 to 50-year-olds. You might be saying, why does Black Ops keep mentioning age? Well, over time the clans shifted. People started branching out and trying to get competitive teams to win to talk smack against others. Well, after a while, one of the members of the clan of older people decided to make his own. He invited about 20 of us to play alongside him and join his server and Ventrilo as we practiced to take the crown. We did a few times and had some good memories. About a year later, a guy came into our game and started freaking out. Apparently our clan leader was a registered sex offender. Not only were most of us under the age of 18, but there were some who were 12 and 13. Well, quickly things started matching up. I personally never cared to keep up with it, but right before we found out his priors, we found out half the people in this game were family. Kids, uncles, aunts, moms, dads, cousins, everyone. They were also all in the same clans too. This led to a lot of people starting to defend the such offender and others claiming it to be completely false, even though the information was listed on their local police department's website. The guy freaks out and vanishes. No explanation or anything. He changes his name and starts playing a different game. Looking back on it all now, I realize how creepy it was, or could have been in certain situations. All the minors, all the family members. It was just an odd experience that I'll never forget. The game eventually died out because of popularity and just being an old game. New games came along, but it was slow pace, so a lot of people would talk as they played, which made the community seem great. There is a second version of the game out now, and I'm sure some of the older players still hang out there, but I don't really care enough to install it and see. There are a lot more details, but for privacy reasons, I'm going to keep those out. Well, I'm late and this isn't exactly answering the question, but I was just thinking about this today when playing an old game. A couple years back I was in a guild with this girl who happened to be related to someone who died near my house. I had no idea. As I'm talking in TeamSpeak, I'm telling them this guy's just died near my house, and I said to myself, watching these guys, you crazy fucks, you're going to die. Of course I didn't actually believe that, but it's a very real possibility where I live, and it happens almost every year, doing what they were doing, though not near my house. So I think nothing of it the next few days. I find out a week later, one of those people died, and as I'm playing this game I start talking about it on TeamSpeak. The girl chimes in with the guy's name and I look it up. Sure enough, it was her faking relative. She lived 1500 miles away, but she had family near me, and he died nearly in my backyard. I couldn't play with them after that as I felt I may have been able to save the man's life if I was more vocal about what I was thinking when I saw him and his friends. The weirdest part, this game was what would be considered dead, only like 2 populated servers, and she just happened to be in a phone call with me playing this game with less than 100 people playing it anymore, in my very clan. Extremely weird. Happened during a raid. This was years ago, but I still refuse to say what game due to how creepy it was to me. Also, sorry for my formatting as I'm on mobile. It was a few friends and my plus a few randoms. The raid was going fine and all, but I was a bit nervous. I have a bit of social anxiety. I get very nervous around new people and the thought of disappointing new people scares the shit out of me, so to speak. Anyway, halfway through the raid we hear "be right back." I should note at this point I haven't said anything, and neither has this guy until now. Well, we go AFK waiting for this guy when all of a sudden we hear this from his mic. I bet he'll like it. He's never liked anything before. Stupid. He's always so stupid. Makes us angry. That feels good. Just a bit deeper. OHH, what a pretty color. I don't know if this fella was just jerking us around or what, but suffice it to say, I faking left. Balls to that. Joking or not, that faker scared me, and after that I never did anything with Randus again. I was playing WoW when we joined a Pugful trial of the Grand Crusader, during what LK. My friend and I had been taking shots in battlegrounds for most of the day, so we were quite intoxicated. We clear the first 2 bosses and my friend passes out at the keyboard. I can clearly hear him snoring and try to yell at him to wake up. Obviously the raid realizes he ninja-arced. I tell them he fell asleep drunk, and so they immediately try to find a replacement, but who actually wants to come in halfway through a really short run? After a brief fail at finding a replacement, people begin to question if he actually fell asleep. So I proceed to give out my Skype name and inviting tons of people to this call. I end up taking a screenshot of all the people I invited to this call to prove he is snoring like a little baby and text it to him. Side fact, we were only running 2 healers, so the other healer switched to off tank, and I ended up having to solo heal 2 GC. I ended up waking up the next day to a very friendly and hilarious "go fuck yourself. We still sing later." My time has come. We were derping around on 4-story, and over Ventrilo we hear faking shut it. The whole chat goes quiet for a few seconds, and then everyone starts laughing. Turns out the dude's kid was making too much noise, and it got to him. Bit faked up, when I think about it in retrospect. Logged into our guild's Ventrilo, and entered a chat room that sounded like a lesbian orgy was taking place between two chicks. One day we had 2 French chicks in our legion and they were chatting away to each other and sounding sexy as fuck. There must have been 20 people in the channel, but all you could hear was those 2 because every single person there, mostly dudes, were just listening with what I can only imagine is the most holy fuck this is hot face. Out of the blue one of the guys explodes and goes just faking speak in English. Turns out he didn't like it when people spoke different languages around him, and he didn't understand what they were saying. Edit. 4. Once had an elderly woman in our guild who went absolutely batshit crazy and yelled at us. She ended up getting booted. She sucked as a healer, even though we tried to coach her as best as we could. My best friend and I back in high school were in the same WoW guild. There was an older lady, maybe 50, in the guild that we found out lived about 10 minutes from my friend's hometown, so naturally they became close quickly. One day I hopped online for a raid and noticed he wasn't on. I jumped on Vent and saw he was in a channel with this lady. I joined to ask if they were joining, but was dismissed rather quickly. I could tell something was up as they were talking somewhat secretly, and they kept referring to some kind of pictures. The guild had a forum where members posted pics of themselves, which I assumed they were talking about. I left and joined the raid channel. I texted my friend as a joke quit Sithering, and joined the raid, in which he texted back we're talking about our hometown. 1 second. After about 10 minutes into the raid, I get a text from my friend. It's a full body nude selfie of him in the mirror. He realizes what had happened and is totally embarrassed, in which of course I made fun of him for years. 3 or 4 years after the incident, he had confessed that maybe 6 months after that pic, when he went to visit family in his hometown, they met up and she gave him a blue job in a cemetery. This happened around 2012. I was playing Test Drive Unlimited 2 with one of my long distance friends, nearly 2 time zones apart. His parents were out of town, and he was home alone with his younger sister. Of course, it was late at night, around 10 PM. We were just cruising around in our favorite cars, when out of the blue he just stops his car. He screams over mic that something just went by his window. We brush it off as an animal and continue. Not even 2 minutes later, same occurrence. Things got spooky real fast from this point. He got up and looked out his window. He told me he could clearly see someone walking down the side of the house. Just like that he started hearing tapping and splatting and whatnot. He was completely frozen. He didn't know what to do. I told him to call the police, but it didn't register at the time. Then the moment of realization hits him. His beautiful 2008 Cadillac CTS was sitting out in the driveway. I told him to hit panic on the key fob, and just like that the people were gone. His sister upstairs had called the police, as the people were throwing eggs at her window. My friend was absolutely heartbroken. Whoever had shown up at his house had totally smashed up his car. All the windows were smashed in, the bumpers were scraped up, and the tires were slashed. He claims that I probably saved his car from absolute doom, but I'm not too sure. We're still friends today, and often talk about what happened. That night was faking crazy. I was on TeamSpeak with a mate playing some casual Payday 2 when his mother walks in, followed by his father and sisters. Now this mate of mine is a hard worker and a lifter and just recently got quite into gaming with the boys upon starting a holiday after studying non-stop for his final exams. Exams now over, he's got a fair bit more time to kill, and he's found he enjoys playing games with the boys. Skippy, I hear his mother say, not his real name FYI, we are concerned about all this gaming. His family then take turns saying things about how he's wasting his life and he must do something worthwhile. Pretty traditional hard-working active lifestyle family, and they simply cannot understand that he wants to play some damn games. It was a faking intervention. At first I thought they were being sarcastic or pulling a prank, but no. He'd been playing games more over the past week or two and this was cause for concern. Skippy is still on TS with me, busy tying up hostages and shouting at security cameras while the intervention happens around him. Was unreal. This might be a bit late to comment, but what the hell? I joined a game of insurgency to hear the team talking about some Russian person. I just ignore them and keep playing the game. When it comes next map I realized who they were talking about, as it was someone in the game who only knew how to speak Russian. His ping was incredibly. He wasn't using push to talk, so we heard everything. We were all good with all the loudness and whatever he said because the team coordination was shit to begin with. Halfway through the round we hear some other person speaking in Russian and it sounded like they were both arguing. Then out of nowhere we heard something that sounded like a gunshot. No one could really tell as the connection didn't help, but also it seemed to be away from his mic a bit. For at least 2 minutes no one said anything. Half the team just stopped trying to play the game. We then heard some moving noises and someone mumbling in the background for a while. He was AFK for the next 3 games until everyone decided to kick him. Scariest cheat ever. No one really talked after that, and I left the server not long after the Russian guy was gone. I still think about it a bit from time to time. I'm sure no one knew what actually happened. Had an old lady have a heart attack and die while raiding SSC in WoW. We joined in on a multi-guild raid on the Twisting Nether server, and this woman on her druid healer was the only person to show up from her guild. She had a really sweet old granny voice, but already sounded like she was on her deathbed. When we started raiding, you could hear her wheezing every time she queued up. Just before fighting the lurker below we heard this screech from what sounded like a really old computer chair, and everything after is still pretty etched in my memory. Her push to talk was still engaged, so we heard her mumble yelling some words, and then you could hear her son start shouting and crying. Everyone thought it was just somebody pulling a prank, and we started laughing about it. Her son called 911, but it wasn't until we heard sirens that everyone started realizing this shit was really going down. We heard the police come through the door and start talking to the son. At this point more than half the raid had left and hopped off vent, but there were still some of us sitting there just listening to this train wreck. Less than a minute later the paramedics got there and started working on her. We heard everything they were doing to her, from them counting off the CPR, to the shouts of clear and the gurgling of the suction. After about 15 minutes of listening to this, they called a pronouncement. After that was when I left the vent channel, but that half hour has been the weirdest experience in all of my gaming history. Back when I was 12 to 14 years old, I was playing WoW with a couple of my friends. We all joined the same Danish guild that was led by a couple who shared the title as guild master. Things were fine, and we did some small raids as it was a small server, and Danes were pretty rare. We started to get better, and eventually started doing the last raid in the game, called Iceground Citadel with the epic endgame boss called the Lich King. One Saturday evening, while we were on the 11th boss, the Lich Beach being the 12th, the mood suddenly changes. At this point I don't have a clue what is going on, but the GMs stop talking, and don't really respond to what people are saying. We still manage to kill the 11th boss, and continue onwards to the final boss, which is introduced with an epic cinematic. At this point I'm hyped as fuck to end the reign of the Lich King Arthas. Then the brother of the female GM starts talking again, and people are asking what's going on. He tells us that his sister had been sleeping around with their 40-year-old neighbor. She is like 20, and she just told the guy. Everyone is shocked and not sure what to say. We end up starting the final boss and all dying. As we are all laying dead, the male GM starts talking, and it is very clear he is upset. He recaps what has happened and tells us he will log off. At the end he is basically weeping. He logs off, and seeing as he was the main tank, a necessary part of our team, we are forced to cancel the raid for the night. I go to bed not really sure what to think about what just happened. I wake up the next day and log on to see that I'm no longer in a guild, so I send a PM to one of the members, and I'm told that the guild was disbanded. I'm sitting there just really confused when it hits me. I lost my chance to kill the Lich King. TLDR. Played WoW. GM cheated on boyfriend. Never got to kill the Lich King. I know no one will probably see this, but I had to share, even if I'm late to the party by a few months. Today, I was playing an endgame activity in Destiny with two randoms who also didn't know each other, and there was an open mic. I don't have a mic, but I could hear them, although they didn't know that I could hear them. We'll call the two guys Captain and Sophomore, based on their gamer tags. Captain kept saying things to Sophomore that just felt off. Captain would refer to himself in the third person and complain about himself whenever he died, with both Captain and Sophomore insulting Captain, as if he wasn't one of the guys in that conversation. After a couple of minutes, it hit me. The guy who was playing as Captain somehow convinced Sophomore that he was actually me. When Sophomore spoke to Captain, he thought he was speaking to the guy controlling me. Captain somehow managed to never once slip up, never referring to himself as Captain, or saying what he was actually doing. I'm just amazed at the dedication of Captain for convincing someone that he was the other player. I can see no motivation, as if he was impersonating me to avoid being kicked because of his lack of skill. He would have still been kicked from the game as he was the one controlling the character who was failing most of the time. TLDR, some guy managed to convince someone else on a mic that he was me, and I was him. Mine is actually something retarded I did. Back when Sunwell was brand new, your boy here had a bit of a coke problem. Couple that with roguing in a progression guild on a fairly competitive server. I actually even saw it referenced in this thread, which is nice, and it pretty much consisted of me blowing through a gram or two while raiding every other night. I was good. The guild knew it, but they also knew that the coke was a big part of it, so I was kinda given some space to do my own thing. Most of that being the coked out asshole rockstar from Mars that was smashing the DPS meter because, well, cocaine. I was also very outspoken. This attracted the attention of one of our healers, a female playing a druid we will call KK was dating another guildie, a hunter class lead, and they lived together. Their gaming setup had them sitting across from each other, so their screens blocked their view of each other, and their headsets made most outside noise nullified. We all used Vent to coordinate our raids. Remember Gertog Blood Boil? He selects the highest DPS, and for something like 20 or 30 seconds he targets them. Both parties get a damage and HP buff, but all the healers typically had to focus the DPS. Not me, though. I'd pop evasion and blast the boss by Rick Ross through the channel and pretty much take over for those 30 seconds. As I said, they would let me do whatever I wanted. Well, K had a very boring relationship, and in between boss fights I would constantly be the center of attention, be it stupid jokes, the sound of me hooting lines, or basically being more exciting than her dude. So we got to chatting in whispers and eventually it evolved to the point of having a separate PTT button, just as a private line between us. The flirting escalated to full-on sexual shenanigans very quickly. Pics and vids were exchanged, emails back and forth, plenty of talk of us wanting to meet up, though we never did, etc. We actually still talk on FB to this day. One particular ladies' night, your boy went especially hard on the blow and wound up getting a little bit too carried away with everything. I was putting up record setting numbers, nailing every interrupt, managing to crack perfectly timed jokes, and yes, even making our poor K a little hot and bothered via the private line. Our raid finishes, and finally she and I can focus a little bit more on our fun. I slam down the PTT button and drop a line about putting my mouthparts on her lady parts. A second or two goes by, but when you're zooted it feels like an eternity, before my entire guild, still in vent, begins roaring. Laughter, confusion, shock. A lot of "I only like you as a friend" from the other guys. She sends me a whisper with "what the fuck, that was public." Fortunately I didn't say her name, so I passed it off as me forgetting that I don't need PTT for phone search, and shared a laugh with my guild. The hunter class lead jokingly calls me a dumbass, which is egregiously faked up on my part, but they wound up breaking up anyways. TLDR, pressed wrong PTT button and my whole guild heard me say I wanted to go down on my druid healer IRL. Also sorry for formatting, I hate typing on mobile. I were playing Destiny one night with a few friends, and as you do on Destiny, you add friends you've played raids with. Now this guy, I must have only played with him once a while ago, because I couldn't remember him, but he was on my friends list, so he joined my party and said, "Stranger, hey me, hello stranger, what time is it?" Me, 10 p.m. where I'm recognizing his American accent. Stranger, but what time is it where I am? Me, I don't know. That's your time. Press yours box button and it will tell you stranger. Me, I'm guessing around 3 p.m. or something stranger. So if it's 3 p.m. for you, what does that make the time at mine? Me, what? My party laughs at him stranger. So what time is it where I am? We laugh some more and stranger leaves the party. Pretty sure he was so high he didn't even know what was going on. Oh no. So I live in the beautiful state of redacted. I played WoW pretty religiously from late beta to right before Cataclysm came out. I'm doing WOTLK Naxx with my guild friends I met in our first guild raiding Kara, and it's our first raid with this new healer and a tank. Of course they are a couple, married in fact, but good god the guy is faking awful. It gets to the point where me and one of my other buddies, he is the main tank every time we play anything, and I'm always whatever, will top the damage charts. We are dicks, start flipping this guy sheet all the time throughout raids. We end up berating him so bad he ends up leaving in the middle of the raid, but his wife stays on. We think it's just kind of odd, so we start grilling her. She brings up way too casually that he is not pleasuring her in the public vent channel, and the discussion derails until she is sending me and my buddy filthy whispers at the same time, not thinking that we are telling each other everything she is saying. In a ho, turns out this healer lives in good ol' redacted 40 minutes away from me. My buddy lives in Wisconsin, so he was not able to keep competing for this girl's affection. She sends me a boatload of pictures and I, of course, like any gentlemanly 16-year-old, swap them with my friend from Wisconsin for the ones she sent him. The entire time this is going on, over weeks and weeks of raiding, the husband is acting exactly the same. We still flip him sheet and his evil beach wife always laughs at our jokes. It's just terrible. Me being the dickhead 16-year-old that I was, arranged to meet with this girl and have some fun. We do what we do and go our separate ways and don't talk until raid night on Tuesday. We start the raid off great. Burning through farm content isn't the most taxing thing, so her and I are faking off with whispers during the trash pulls and such. Also playing Peggle, best mod they ever made. Right before we pull night we hear this muffled screaming and yelling. I alt plus tab and check who has their McCude and it's her. Oh shit. Turns out he walked over to her computer to grab something, and while she wasn't paying attention he saw our chat and did not take too kindly to it. They get in a huge screaming match. She insults his penis size. Why do they always go for that first? And just starts berating this guy. Tells him how he is such a loser she has to go bang teenagers she meets online. It just disintegrates from there. He goes completely quiet and finishes the raid in silence. And then the worst part comes. Knight is on his last summoning bullshit phase and this guy just starts sobbing. Like, not regularly crying, like blubbering. It's awful. We clear the summons, and then he is obviously either AFK or simply can't go on and dies to a void zone. Never hear from him again. Apparently he moved all of his shit out the next day, and they got a divorce years down the road. So yeah, dumb kids do dumb shit. If it wasn't me, I'm sure it would have been, and probably already was, someone else though. Wow, after reading a lot of these responses y'all are hella boring. The strangest things you all heard have been when someone using voice activation instead of PTT says very normal things, like I love you to people around them. Really, that's the absolute strangest. That makes me really sad for you. I can't recall the absolute strangest things I've heard in voice chats, because I grew up playing some hilarious Garry's Mod servers and my friends and I talk to each other through public Mumble servers, which get quite a lot of strange traffic. But one very recent incident on Mumble was when two guys joined our channel. They sounded like the most hippie Californian surfers you could imagine. Huge enthusiastic greetings, then they got right to the chase. They were here for a moaning contest, so we all went back and forth moaning for about 5 minutes as they coached us on how to moan better, but no one could moan as well as them, so they left, never to be seen again. Shit like this happens weekly on public voice servers, and it isn't even near as interesting as some games voice chats can be. It seriously makes me wonder if anyone here has ever played GTA V online on PC. Every day a situation rises between random players in chat that makes me almost cry with laughter. Couple that with the fact that players get extra rewards for singing in the shower, yelling at store clerks they're robbing to make it go faster, and sweet talking strippers they're getting private dances from, all for the listening entertainment of all other players in the lobby, makes GTA V Online on PC more interesting of a voice chat than pretty much every answer in this thread. You all need more insanity in your lives.